Hello everyone, my name is Mahmood, and for my FCAT UGC 2022 student presentation, I would like to present my Spring 2021 term paper from my Communication course 214. And in this course, it basically introduces political economy scholarship and how it can be applied to study media, communication, and industries discourse. So a little about me. This is my first time submitting a project for FCAT UGC, and I'm a bit nervous and excited at the same time. I do plan to submit future assignments for this competition as well. Um, so originally I'm from Bangladesh. I have transferred to SFU from FIC back in 2020. And I'm a third year student now. I'm majoring in communication and minoring in IAT. I'm passionate in terms of communication. I'm passionate about social research sector of things, and for IAT, I'm interested in interactive arts. Not interactive arts. I mean, yeah, interactive design. And for this paper, I basically looked at the negative aspects of gig economy, which is like digital economy where with precarious labor conditions, even though they seem like really lucrative or exciting or very flexible in terms of the work that employees have to do, there's always a downside that most people, when they start, they are not aware of till they're not aware of. And here in by digital platform, what I mean is services that app company many companies have started, like food delivery services, groceries, freelance work. That's what I mean by digital platforms. And digital platforms, the in fact, this idea of flexibility is completely opposite when it comes to these type of work. As like for example, the it creates uneven power structure between the employer and the employee, and even the language these platforms use in terms of the employee. They don't call them employee; they call them independent contractors, which devoids them from having to pay any benefits, employment insurance, and they also use very exploitative tactics to always underpay and create precarious conditions for the worker compared to the customer that is receiving the work itself. Oh. So, in terms of the theory, most of these digital platforms have a surplus uh, amount of workers, and the surplus amount of workers helps them always create greater amount of profits, and these profits, only fraction of it goes to the workers themselves, because these workers, there's an influx of workers compared to the jobs or the assignments available. uh, it creates this fierce competition between the workers themselves, and this competition always creates this mentality that I need to outbid this guy, or I need to outbid the other person. And this competitive nature always keeps the workers on their feet, so they don't really get to communicate with each other. And since they don't know each other as well, it's very hard for these workers to actually form labor unions as well. And which is why even in recent news, it's quite hard for workers that work for Uber or any other services to form unions, because the numbers themselves tend to be very low. And the policy natures, the policymakers, when it comes to making policies and legislations for these specific job market, they're way behind, and new regulations, implementation of new regulations are always uh, derailed by lobbyists, by these companies, because they don't really want new regulations to be put in place that would put them at a disadvantage compared to the workers. So for this essay, most of the theoretical stuff that I've read during the term and decided to write this essay, I also used my personal experience as well, because back in 2021 I was working for food delivery apps like Skip the Dishes and DoorDash, which also kind of helped me see how these, even though these papers were written like 3 to 4 years before, they were completely on point in terms of the things that were the practices that these companies were implementing at the time. And you could, as a student of communication, that kind of helped me see the other side of things. Even though as a customer myself, I have always, sometimes if I'm not cooking or I'm hungry, I always use these apps for foods. I originally didn't think how much the drivers or the delivery person themselves have to work and they go through in terms of the long hours that they have to pull just to make ends meet. So even though these uh, schedules are very fragmented, the most of these times these workers are working part-time and the benefits that they have are very bare minimum, even the payments themselves. So if they do feel like they should leave this work, they really can't, because these platforms don't provide any job security as well. They're just um, gig jobs that people have tend to do, and they have tight shifts in terms of how the systems that they use. So the software systems that these companies use tend to be um, very aggressive in terms of how the workers themselves get assigned work. So sometimes, and they're very error prone. So sometimes, like I would get orders um, that I would pick up and go to the delivery point, but turns out that delivery itself was meant for another driver, and the system for some reason assigned it to me. So the location of it would be completely different. And even though it seems like it's okay to just happen once or twice, it happened more than like 10 times every month, just because there was influx of either orders or the system had errors. Even though if I tried to address it with the customer care, most of the time they just didn't really respond. They would either tell me to completely throw that food away or return it to the restaurant, which initially would also make the temperature of the food go, it would turn the food bad as well. So, and like a very good example would be since these softwares are managed through um, intensified systems, like they kind of are either, I guess, how do I say, assigned in a way that it would make for a trip. Like if I got a really big tip from the customer for a job, the amount of transit that the app would assign me would be very low compared to a very longer distance or a very shorter distance orders. So if a customer over tips a driver, they would always pay less, which is kind of ridiculous, because technically these transit pays should come from the companies regardless of the tips. So even though these apps would have sayings like 100% of the tip goes to the drivers, yes, they it does, but they end up not paying for that delivery. So it's basically the customer paying for the delivery, if that makes sense. And there are countless other cheap tactics that they use to exploit workers as well. So these are my references for with references of the articles that I've used for this paper, and that's the end of my slide. Thank you so much. I know I was a bit I had a hard time presenting for a few of the slides, but thank you so much.